What are the country's top CEOs doing to build extraordinary teams and cultures who thrive even during a pandemic? You're about to take a deep dive into the minds of wildly successful C-suite leaders who are evolving the way that we work in the 21st century. Welcome to this special edition of How to Be Mesmerizing. Hey everybody, welcome to How to Be Mesmerizing. It's Tim Shurr, and in this special CEO Secrets series on growing your business and using it as a force for good, we have Monica Dalwadi with us. Monica, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. Very excited to be here today.
Very excited to have you, Monica. So Monica Dalwadi is managing partner of the DC region of Baker Tilly, which is a major international accounting and consulting firm. And she also serves on the firm's National Diversity, Inclusion, and Belonging Steering Committee and the DC Growth and Retention of Women Committee, among many others. So obviously, Monica, you are a superstar, which is why you are on the program. So good for you for all the good that you're doing in our world.
Thank you.
Yeah, so let's jump right in. All right, so Monica, why would you say that diversity and inclusion are so crucial to the success of an organization?
There are so many reasons that I could expand upon here, but I'll pick a couple that I think are most important. First is for the people within the organization, having an ability to see individuals that look like themselves, that think like them, that gives you a path to how you can move in the organization. It is so important. I can't tell you how many times people have just, whispered to me on the side, thank you so much. You've given me a way to see how a female, a mom, a person of color could aspire to this level. And so having those inspirational elements and showing people that this is possible, I think is important as a career step and a laddering process for others in the organization. It's also so important to our clients. Our goal is to enhance and protect the value that our clients have created for themselves. And part of being able to enhance or protect that value is to have a lot of different perspectives. And that perspective may come from a different socioeconomic background, a different career background, a different racial or gender background, just different ways of thinking. And to have that diversity of perspective to make sure our clients succeed is so important in that regard. And so I would say that there's two main factors for us. One is our people, and right aligned with that is what's happening with our clients.
Outstanding. Those are great answers. Yeah, it's important for people to be able to look around and identify themselves and feel like they fit, right? And that there are other people that are like them who are out there being successful. It's important for us to have role models. And then you're right. If you have a whole bunch of people that think exactly the same, then you only have one piece of the puzzle. Diversity is about having lots of pieces of the puzzle so you can see the bigger picture. And it's a big world out there. So, the more pieces of that puzzle you have, the more successful you're going to be, especially at serving your clients.
Exactly.
Yeah, well said. Okay, so what is the relationship between diversity, inclusion, and employee retention? Because that's a hot topic. Everybody wants to know how do we keep our best people? So why is it so important to have that diversity and inclusion if you want to keep a great team?
I think it's so important that you are really focused on retention right now. We're all talking about the Great Resignation and individuals and professionals just deciding that they don't want to work in the same way that they have worked in the past. And when you have people from all different backgrounds and thought processes, you can figure out different ways to accomplish your goals that might help people where they aspire to in their careers to get there. And I think about that from the perspective of, in our organization, we've said, we don't just want you to follow this one linear path to how you might get somewhere. We want you to have diversity in the way you grow your career. And I have a talk later today with our our newest team members to talk about what are the paths that they could take. And the paths go up, they go sideways, they go back again, they curve around. But having that diversity of perspective allows people to see that you could have a career that's shaped in an organization in many different ways, and you don't just need to follow one path. And then that inclusion component, I think, is so important because you want to feel as though you belong within the organization and you have that sense of I have some friends here. I have some people who have my back here. I have some people who understand me at this organization. And I think it's the deeper level items that our team members are looking for. They're looking for someone to help them really navigate their career when they may not know where they want to go or how to get there. And so they're looking for people with unique perspectives that can be mentors and coaches and guides and feel like they belong and can ask some of those difficult questions without being judged.
Yeah, absolutely. There is, it's just built into us that, birds of a feather flock together in some ways. I remember I was on a vacation. I was 16. We were in Hawaii, and which was the only big vacation we ever took. We didn't have a lot of money growing up. So we had this vacation, and we were on this boat, and I met someone, and they were from Indiana, which is where I was from. And immediately we felt like we had a connection because we came from the same state. Right. Mm-hmm. And so, if you're traveling, to a different country and you see someone or you find out they live in the same country, all of a sudden it's like, hey, it's just that feeling of wanting to belong. And that's something that a lot of people talk about, inclusion and diversity. And what I loved about what you do, Monica, is that you also talk about belonging. In fact, you have this motto, we got Dibs, and Dibs stands for diversity, inclusion, and belonging. Right. And so describe what you mean by belonging and why is it so crucial for employee engagement and retention?
Absolutely. I would say that, diversity is a place where you are invited to come to the dance. Inclusion is you might be on the dance floor, and belonging is you get to pick part of the music. It's a sense of like really feeling like you are there, you are a part of it, you are creating it, you can be your authentic self in how it comes about. And people not only want that, but they appreciate that and believe that they're gaining value from you being you and me being me inside of all of this. And where you can feel that deep sense of belonging, I think it allows people to be vulnerable. It allows them to get open. It allows them to have deeper conversations and connections than they ever could have previously had. And that brings you to a new level of outcome for a person in their career, for a particular client, or what you're doing more broadly in society. A lot of our team members are very invested in our community and how do we make the community better. And if you can be vulnerable with one another around, here's what I see the challenges and what I think needs to be done, that coming together of finding solutions can really happen in a meaningful way.
That is beautiful. And I love the metaphor. It's so good. So that's the work that I'm doing too. My goal was to work with businesses so that I could connect with lots of people at the same time who are parents and spouses, and they take these tools and these deep insights about psychology and what's driving them at an unconscious level, and then have that self-awareness, because people can only live up to their own level of self-awareness, and then upgrade limiting beliefs that they picked up in childhood so that they can be more authentic and they can be their true selves. They don't just wear a hat at work and a different one at home. Right. They take those tools and they bring them home to their kids so that I don't have to see their kids 20 years from now in the therapy office. And so that's why, and people say, well, what do you do with these companies? And I talk about how we build really deep trust by talking about things that people normally wouldn't talk about at work, right? And getting real deep, getting real honest, feeling safe. That's where that term psychological safety came from, feeling like they're going to be accepted, talking about real struggles that they have, which I have found causes other people, especially when leaders show vulnerability, which is really a strength. It makes everybody else feel closer and more bonded. Well, of course you show up this way. That's why you act this way in those situations, right? And so it just brings people closer together, and in a way that doesn't happen with just Friday pizza parties.
That is absolutely correct. We're actually trying to figure out some of those components of how do we go deeper with our team members, because it was number one that you were just having some pizza parties and social gatherings in the office to reconnect people and give them a chance. They had worked remote for so long. If you want the opportunity to come in, you absolutely can. And we'll start at a very low barrier of we've got some food, get together and reconnect. We've got a happy hour, get together and reconnect. But the next components of it will be things like speed dating on deeper topics, to talk about in the conversation, Who is your personal hero and why? What's a time when you failed and what did you learn from it? And let people really connect with one another on a more meaningful level. But we did decide to start with pizza.
Yeah, you got to start, with a date. You don't say, "Hey, you want to get married," right? And so, yeah, that's right, that's right. So another one I use, because it's all about, as you already know, creating experiences, right? Because people don't change just having more information. Everybody knows we should probably eat more veggies instead of all the sugar we eat, but people are grabbing for those cookies anyway. And so another one that I created an experience was, where are you from? Where you come from. And you have them talk for just a couple of moments. I love the speed dating. I've done that too. You get 50 people in a line and 50 people facing them. You got a couple minutes and then they just keep adjusting. I did that for sales teams. It was incredible what, the feedback you get. But anyway, when you talk about where you come from, then people are like, well, okay, now I understand. Maybe your dad wasn't or your mom wasn't very affectionate, or they didn't give you compliments. And that's why you never compliment or validate anybody. You don't think you need it. Right? Even though half your workforce really wants that pat on that back and that appreciation. So yeah, it's all about creating experiences. I have hundreds of them, so we can talk about that later. So, all right. Question number 4, how do you incorporate the motto of Dibs in the workplace so that people are constantly talking about belonging?
That is great. We've tried to be really, really intentional about how we do this. So when someone first joins the organization, in part of their orientation sessions, we're talking about what we're doing for growth and retention of women, what we're doing to help retain and grow our people of color, what their communities are that people can get involved in, LGBTQA, Peloton, running groups, you name it, all different affinities that you could be a part of because of your interests, because of how you were born, because of how you've grown up over time. And then throughout the cadence of a career, we're trying to build this in. So try to make sure from the beginning, when people are scheduled on projects, that we've got a diverse representation on that particular team for those projects. Every month, we're having a cadence of connecting calls with one another and sharing, here's what we're doing, and here's some things that you might not be aware of, and how you could have a deeper conversation, whether it's around Black History Month, Latinx Heritage Month, what's happened in a community, in our community, or what's happening nationally from a racial spectrum or some other awareness component that we want our team members to have. And so we have some very specific groups that really help lead these activities. And it could be generational based, it could be race based, it could be experience based and all of it. But there's a cadence of how it occurs, and it's occurring throughout the year and throughout the progression of someone's career. So we really do have a way that we've put it together. I wouldn't say it's a checklist, but it's a very flexible type of listing that you can use and pick and choose in your geography, in your market, what works well, what plays, and how to engage team members.
Nice. Very nice. It's very important that, as you and I agree on, that you have to be talking about Dibs. You've got to be talking about your values. You've got to be talking about your mission all the time. It's not safe for a Friday afternoon get together. You're constantly talking about it. And, I've worked with companies where some people never talked about it, right? Their values. It was just a piece of paper on the wall. And that's why I was there to change that. And then there was other companies where together we, hit the ground running, and they were always talking about being an active part of the solution. Everybody was empowered to solve customer problems right then and there, instead of having to ask 20 different people, is this allowed? Is that allowed? Right? Being able to just have these sayings, be kind, in this situation right now, are you an active part of the solution? Are you being kind? And so are you being proactive? And so when you're asking yourself these questions based on your values, it becomes the compass and part of the language all the time. And that's what makes it stick. So
it's interesting that you say that on the values front too, because we did add to our core values belonging, and that having and creating and fostering a sense of belonging for all of our team members is a core value, just in the same way that collaboration is a core value, in the same way that stewardship of our people and our communities is a core value. And we thought it was really important that we call that out for everybody, that this is so important. It's not just part of our strategy, it's a part of who we are.
Yeah. I personally believe that belonging should be a part of every company, of their value, because belonging really says it all. You would have to clarify, because when I help companies with values, we talk about the values and we give the definition of what the value mean, and everybody's co-creating this. It's not, this is what it is, and now you're being handed it. People support what they co-create. So then we have the definition. Then we actually create a series of behaviors. This is what it looks like in action, so that we actually have examples, because people can understand examples. So we have a bunch of examples for each one. And then we go put it into action. And then people come back and tell stories. And then we share those stories company-wide, so that people are getting more and more ideas of how they can show up, and that it's more simple and easy than people often make it in their mind. And belonging is all about, are you making the person next to you feel cared for? I have an acronym, Monica. I call it LOVE, L-U-V, listened to, understood, and validated. You walk around loving on your people, right? Are you listening to them? Are you understanding them? Are you validating them? Even if you don't agree with the content, are you showing respect and caring about them as a fellow human being? And when people feel like they belong, when they feel like they're a part of a team, when they feel like their work is meaningful, and they understand how what they're doing, no matter what it is adding to the success of the company. And then what does that mean? You make it more personal about your customers, and when you're helping them, what happens in their life because of the support that you're giving them. And when people start to have that meaningful sense of work, and they feel like they belong, they stay. They don't jump ship. They don't go somewhere else.
Yeah, 100%. And I love that acronym. That is a fantastic way to look at it. And it's the kindness and the force for good that we need right now, that we care about every one of our stakeholders, whether that's our clients, whether that's our stakeholders, and especially our people.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So like many companies who have been pivoting during the pandemic, you have a hybrid, workforce. So some are in the office, many are at home. So what are you doing to help everybody feel like they feel like they're still belonging, even when they're not in the office?
That's a great question. And in fact, just this last week, we had a market call with all of our team, and I had a couple of presentations from individuals who are really taking different paths and approaches to where they work and how they're working. So there was one gentleman who spoke about he's primarily in the office, and that's why it works for him and his family and what he wants to and how he's successful in that regard. We had another female talk about how she's primarily remote and why that works for her and what she considers in staying connected with individuals. And then a gentleman who was hybrid as well talk about that difference. But what we've tried to do is be very purposeful in giving people different ways to connect. So once a month, we have that market call. Get updated on what's happening in the market, what you should know about how to get together. Then we have a mix of in-person and virtual events. The in-person events could be as simple as some of the lunches and happy hours we talked about, or more meaningful, like some of those shared experiences that you would have together. And then we have virtual events that are just designed to let people have the kinds of conversations that they might have had around the water cooler in the past that aren't naturally occurring now. And so we call them brown bag lunch bunches. Bring your own lunch, and people submit different topics. It could be related to hiking, because we're all doing a lot of that right now still. It could be related to NFL. It could be about kids returning back to school. But what are topics of interest to our people that they just want to have a connection and community with others around? And then we add into that cadence different topics that relate to diversity, that relate to inclusion, that relate to career growth and development. And so even today, the conversation I have is with our associates and newly promoted seniors around what can they do for their career path, progression, and success.
That is wonderful. I love that. A lot of times leaders will ask me, what's the thing that I'm supposed to be doing? And I said, there's no one thing, right? You can keep the communication going, and you ask people what they're interested in, and then you start creating experiences just the way that you mapped it out. And so that you have a variety of options for people to choose from. And you'll find that some people are interested in connecting about sports. Other people want to talk about video games. Other people want, different. They want pet insurance. I don't
Check. You are correct.
Yeah. And so when you have all those different ways to add value, people are like, I can't get this anywhere else. My company's amazing, right? I really feel like I belong here. And then we're like, yes. That's the culture that we want to have. So yeah, it's very good. Very good. So, all right. So many visionary leaders are ushering in a new era of leadership where people and the planet are just as important as profitability in business. So how are you measuring success now?
That is a very good question. And we get this question from our clients and prospects that would like to work with us as well on what we're doing. One of the things that has been a distinct benefit of virtual and hybrid work is the reduced carbon emissions that we all have. Our teams used to travel constantly, plane, train, automobile, to get everywhere, and that has a significant negative impact on the environment. And now we talk about, the cost savings our clients can have from a virtual or hybrid aspect of doing the work, but also the environmental impact that we can positively have on those organizations. I think people, they're at a very superficial level, used to think they had to print everything, and then they go through 18 months of not having to print a single piece of paper in their homes, and they realize that there's a different way of working. We've had just a boon, like many other organizations, that the type of technology we thought we'd adopt over 5 years, we adopted within an 18-month cycle within the organization. And so that led to efficiency plays, that led to reduction in manual and paper types of processes that are out there, and trying to make sure that there's an understanding of the positive environmental impact that all has is probably the toughest piece of it, because you're doing this because it makes good business sense, and it's good business sense and good planet sense at the same time, which is exactly what you want to have happen. But I don't know that everyone necessarily tries to package it in that way until their team members or others ask them about the ESG related impact.
Yeah, that's outstanding. I love that. Yeah, we got to get the mortgage industry understanding that they don't have to have, a whole tree in your living room to refinance your house. So
what I love is my last home that I sold, we did the entire closing virtually and used all DocuSign paperwork. And so it was like transformational, Tim. We're going to get there. Now my neighbors across the street are closing on a new home, and it's all paper. So we're still in the evolution, I believe.
We're getting there. But that's why I feel like we're in this new era, right? The zeitgeist, the timing is right. COVID helped us move in there quicker, like you said. And as a result, we're looking at not having to travel as much. It's okay to do these interviews. It's just as effective. When I'm working with my individual clients doing executive coaching, it's all over the phone, and it's way more effective, and I don't have to be on an airplane all the time. Right. Mm-hmm. And it saves them money because I'm not forwarding those costs onto them. And so everybody's happy, and we're getting the same exact results. So
and talk about the level of safety when you're in your own home, and what you can share and what you feel comfortable doing could be vastly different when you're not in an environment that's familiar to you.
That's exactly right. Yeah, people feel a lot more safe. I mean, most of my conversations start with, hang on, let me close the door. So, yeah. So Baker Tilly is a huge international accounting organization. So numbers, right? So is it true that investing in your people and in your culture increases the bottom line because productivity and engagement and retention improves? And recruiting costs and hiring costs are lower because you don't have all that turnover. Are the numbers proving that, hey, being this way and showing up in this way actually is more profitable?
Absolutely. I mean, it costs us so much more, just as one example, in recruiting when we have to find a new team member, the amount of time the recruiter spends, the time that our team members spend, what we have to do to think about market salaries and the impact to the rest of our team, and how we make those adjustments for them to be equitable is so important. And if you spent that time with individuals instead, it would make such a difference. When our team members tell me, I don't have the time to do everything that we need to do on the mentorship front and on the retention front, I'm like, do you have the time and the funds to recruit another person? Because that's what it's going to cost you if you haven't spent that time with your team right now. And I know there's been studies that show it'll cost you something like 1.5 to 2 times more in time and cost to bring in a new team member versus spending that time on growing an existing team member.
Oh, yeah. I mean, depending on who you're talking to, I was talking to another friend that's in charge of recruiting and hiring, and she said it's costing us like 400% to try to find people and interview them and then get them acclimated and then get them trained. And then the team has to keep adjusting to a new personality all the time, and that throws off the flow. And now they're doing more training instead of, doing their work. And so the costs that can't be measured, aren't being factored in. Yeah. So, and remember, people don't leave their companies, they leave their bosses, as well. And so I have countless stories of people who had these unconscious beliefs that I don't have time to train my people because I can barely get my own stuff done. Hitting the numbers is more important than being transformational. I had one gentleman that I remember, he would run through the factory and never make eye contact with anybody because he was afraid someone was going to stop him and say hi because he had to get his stuff done. And I'm like, what kind of message are you sending? And of course, morale was terrible there. And so, but people have these blind spots. They don't know what they don't know. We're so focused on what we have going on in our life that we're not aware of how that's impacting others. And in every conversation you have, or every conversation you don't have, it's like you have a bank account and you're either making a deposit or a withdrawal. You're either strengthening or weakening that relationship with every interaction. And people just don't realize that because they're so focused on hitting their numbers. So I think that people hit their numbers more effectively when they have a team that's fully engaged because they feel like they belong.
Yeah. 100%. Maybe I should change that to 400% now.
That's right. 400%. So, yeah. So you already pretty much said it. I'm always asking people, what are some of the limiting beliefs that you find your people are still struggling with? So you mentioned one of them, is hitting the numbers. That's always, I don't have enough time. I've got too much on my plate. People always want more from me for less time, and we really need to hire more people. I'm doing the job of 2 or 3 people. And how do you help them with, some of those beliefs that are just continually getting in their way?
I think part of it is through the storytelling and the ability to share, here's what we've been able to do to retain team members when we've really taken an interest in them. I've got a couple of different mentees, and in spending time with them and really going through, what do they aspire to want to be? What are they great at that allows them to move on that path? What are some of the challenges that are holding them back? And how can I help them progress through using those strengths and working through those challenges? They're not so difficult conversations for you to have as a partner or a senior leader within the organization, but it takes the time. And once you do that and can show people the outcomes of here's how someone stayed within the organization, here's how they progressed in their path, and to view success differently. Part of your success is getting someone to that next level, getting them to manager, senior manager, partner within the organization, helping them through a difficult time. The success isn't always driven just by the numbers.
Well said. Yes, storytelling it gets past that critical faculty and that skeptical part of us into your subconscious mind, and that's where the real magic takes place. And so I love that about storytelling. What I've found, Monica, is that people just in general, a lot of leaders want to be good leaders, and they just don't have the awareness of what questions to ask. A lot of times I just write out questions and then we just give them to everybody. These are the questions to ask, or read the Dream Manager book, or other books that give you. And a lot of times books tell you how to be a great leader, but they don't give you the exact strategy for how to do it. And giving people the actual words,
Yes.
This is what you ask people. Your goal is to grow your people, not just get your to-do list done. Right. And people will always struggle with that a little bit until they upgrade their beliefs, because the outside business world will say, no, it's all about getting your to-do list done. But transformational leaders move past that transactional part and really care about people. Because what we're talking about is asking people about themselves. I've had leaders say, well, I'm not a psychologist. I don't know how to get into people's personal life. That's not appropriate. Right. Or, well, if I become friends with my people, then I'm not going to have any leverage over them. These old school beliefs. You and I both found that's the opposite to be true.
Exactly. And I love your point of writing questions for people. You said in the beginning how being great at work can help you in your family life. And I like to ask my children at the dinner table some nights, like, what questions did you ask today? Did you ask a good question today? Because it's about being curious about the world and what's going on around you, and how do you make sure that you're developing that type of skill set early on, because it's not always easy to ask a good question.
Yeah, that's right. So, Monica, how can people learn more about you and Baker Tilly?
So many different ways. You can find me on LinkedIn if you'd like to, Monica Dalwadi. Always there to connect and reach out. Certainly get to know us from some of our annual materials on diversity and inclusion, on what we're doing for stewardship and in the community. And if you're looking for a really exciting career in being a business advisor, I would say more than anything else, and that business advisory role could be through audit, through tax, through consulting, reach out to me. We are always looking to bring in great talent into the organization.
Outstanding. Monica, thank you so much for all your wisdom, all the good that you do in the world, and for being a mesmerizing guest on our show today.
Thank you, Tim. Appreciate it.
Hey, it's Tim. You ever wonder why so many talented, hardworking entrepreneurs and business owners struggle with inconsistent self-belief or high stress or procrastination or self-sabotage? Well, the answer may surprise you, and the solution is already inside of you. I've been searching for the answers to this for decades, and I found them, and I put it into a new program called The Power of Your Unconscious Mind, Mental Secrets for Accelerating Success. And because you're a listener, I want to give you a free VIP copy. Head over to PowerMindsetProgram.com. That's PowerMindsetProgram.com and grab your copy today.